Welcome to the Legal Cafe here in downtown Fort Worth. My name is Claudia Cubias. I'm an immigration attorney in the Dallas office.
And my name is Katherine Hawkins. I'm an immigration attorney in the Fort Worth office, and I also practice in Mansfield.
So today we're going to talk about a few hot immigration topics. Can you tell us who can travel and who shouldn't travel during this administration?
We've actually been getting a lot of questions like this recently with reports of people being refused entry by CBP or denied boarding passes back into the United States. And it has caused a lot of confusion, and it is a little bit scary, so we understand that. I know a lot of attorneys are recommending that if you're not a United States citizen, that you shouldn't be traveling outside the United States. And I think that that's a pretty decent rule to keep you safe, especially if you don't have a pressing need to travel. But green card holders or lawful permanent residents are being routinely admitted back into the United States without any issues. The issues that a lawful permanent resident might experience are ones if you've been arrested before, if you've been placed in removal proceedings in the past. You should certainly speak with an attorney before you go travel to see what type of documentation you should be traveling with and whether or not your previous criminal history would bar you from coming back or get you placed in removal proceedings upon your entry back into the United States.
What if I don't remember, like if I committed a crime or if I don't know if there's something pending in the system? Like what can I do to be sure I can travel and come back as a green card holder?
I think that most people should practice traveling with their FBI reports, FBI records. You can go get your fingerprints taken at a number of different places. I know that I went actually to a gun range to get my digital fingerprints done before I took the bar exam. But there are a lot of places that offer those services, and you can upload them to the FBI website and apply for an FBI FOIA. It's a Freedom of Information Act request. And those results will help you identify whether or not you have an arrest record in the event that you don't remember, and also will help clarify at least some of the conclusions of those cases, so that you could readily be able to show that to an officer should they ask about it. That would be a good idea to travel with. Your green card, obviously, you should travel with. If your green card is expired, you shouldn't travel unless you have renewed it or you've received an AIDIT stamp from the USCIS office that's local to your area. That will have an expiration date on it of about a year from when you got it, and will give you the same rights and privileges as your green card does if your green card is in the process of being renewed. And you should travel with your passport, obviously. That's a real ID, and it will get you in and out of the country. And then you should travel with a person. Probably not travel alone if you can help it, just so that you have somebody with you in the event that a dialogue does happen and you need a record of that dialogue. But routinely, they're being admitted back into the United States. Lawful permanent residents are being admitted back into the United States. If you have a conditional permanent residency, which is that green card that has 2-year expiration on it instead of 10, you can travel with it as long as it's unexpired. But if it's expired and you have filed your I-751 to renew or extend your expiration date to a 10-year expiration date, you need to travel with that original receipt of filing to show that you are still in lawful permanent resident status. And again, if you have questions about that, you should certainly come consult with us in the Dallas office, Fort Worth office, or Mansfield office so that we can help you kind of build a travel packet.
That's okay. These are great advice. Just one question, because sometimes I get this a lot, is if I have a 751 pending, should I still be traveling outside of the country, or should I wait until I receive an approval, or should I wait until I get an interview? What do you suggest as an immigration attorney?
I recommend not traveling outside of the country overall, unless you have a compelling reason to travel. If you have experienced a death in the family, if you have a family member who's very ill outside of the country, you have an urgent need to travel, then you can travel while your I-751 is pending, as long as you have that original receipt that extends your deadline. A copy of the receipt is not enough, especially for a lot of airlines. But that original receipt plus your expired green card plus your passport should be enough for you to travel if you need to. But again, I wouldn't travel unless you had a compelling need to travel. Global entry is also a great way to circumnavigate circumnavigate some contact with Customs and Border Protection officers, because if you apply for it and receive it, you get to go in a shorter lane, and you just scan your card and you get to go on through, because basically global entry is kind of like you do the vetting process for the Customs and Border Protection agents before you travel. So, because they will review criminal history and immigration history, and they'll have a copy of your green card or your passport, because it's available to United States citizens, it's available to lawful permanent residents, and it's available to citizens of about 19 other countries if you don't have a criminal record. And it's a good way to reduce anxiety, just because you reduce contact with federal officers in those instances, if you can apply for and receive your card before you go travel.
Okay, that's very nice. So also there's a lot going on with like the Real ID Act. A lot of people in the news are stating that you need your Real ID to travel, even within the United States. You can still use your passport, is that correct? Or even a work permit, those are still good documents to use.
Yeah, both of those are compliant with the Real ID Act. So in the state of Texas, Real IDs have that little golden star on it for your driver's license itself. Those are Real ID compliant, but work authorization cards are Real ID compliant. They're federally issued cards. And passports, even foreign passports and domestic passports, both, are also federal Real ID compliant, because they're federally issued documents. And there's a lot of buzz in the news about people being arrested in court and people being arrested when they go for their interviews at USCIS. Who is being arrested?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we're getting it a lot since so many people are scared with everything that's going on in today. So the people who are being detained and arrested in immigration court are individuals who have been in the country less than 2 years, people who entered unlawfully. Even if they have a case pending in immigration court, we are hearing news of these cases being terminated by either, the immigration judge or the government attorney asking the immigration judge to terminate it. And when that occurs, back in the day, this used to be a good thing, but now when it happens, people can basically get detained and removed from the United States immediately. That's called an expedited removal order.
The difference between an expedited removal order and a normal removal order.
So for an expedited removal order, you do not have a right to a hearing. They will immediately just detain you and take you out of the country and deport you. That is not the same thing as a regular deportation order. And it's very important to know the difference. There are some individuals currently in the United States who have a deportation order and have TPS or some sort of authorized status to stay here. Those individuals, if they have a case pending at USCIS in a Dallas field office, in a USCIS office,
but especially here in Dallas.
Yes. They can also be detained.
Yeah, I've been reading about those detentions as well. And then what about people who have been ordered removed and they want to reopen their case to see if they have more relief? What do you recommend at this time?
Right now, I recommend if somebody doesn't have a way to immediately fix their legal status, for them not to touch a motion to reopen. It's not advisable at this time. There are some cases that are administratively closed as well. We're suggesting people just wait and hold off, since we are hearing news of some cases being recalendared as well. So
yeah, if you were taken off docket.
So the best thing is just to lay low if you do have a deportation order, or if you have an admin closed case with immigration court.
And when you say immediate relief, what does that mean? An immediate way to fix their status?
Yes, so that just means if you, let's say for instance, have a legal entry, you are now married to a U.S. citizen who can immediately petition. Those are people who can file for a green card right away inside the United States without leaving. Those are the cases that we can evaluate and see if it's advisable and wise for you to reopen your deportation order, so then you can adjust.
Yeah, definitely reasons to consult before you make any decisions. A buzz in the news about DACA as well. What are we seeing on whether or not people can apply for DACA for the first time right now?
I haven't heard anything different. There have been some talks that initial DACA applications again and processing them, but we're still waiting for the judge's order to be finalized.
Yeah.
So we haven't heard anything back yet. You can still renew your DACA if you currently have DACA. Continue to renew your work permits at this time. Do not stop. Again, we're just waiting for that judge's order to be finalized so then we can have more detail in what exactly is going to happen. People are still who have DACA are still going to be able to have a deferred action status in the United States. And I think that's what most people really care about. You'll still be a low priority enforcement as well. I would say I am hearing some attorneys advise people, like if they can move out of Texas, that they should do it. But I know that's not a feasible thing for everybody who has DACA. So I'm interested to see what happens. I don't know if maybe they'll give them a work permit under a different category is what I'm thinking.
I would hope so. I know there's a lot of debate on the Fifth Circuit ruling where pretty much every state dropped out of the case as far as whether or not DACA was state, except for the state of Texas. And so because Attorney General Ken Paxton is still alleging that DACA recipients are harming the state of Texas, it's causing some tension with whether or not the security of receiving deferred status,
yes.
I think is not on the chopping block, but receiving a work authorization and the tolling of acquiring any unlawful presence, those are both on the chopping block, potentially for Texas DACA recipients. And so it's a little bit scary in that respect, and we understand that. But we're watching it closely, and we'll advise appropriately. But right now, nothing has changed. So I do recommend continuing to renew as well. Yeah.
I get this question all the time, and I'm sure you do as well, where people tell me, well, they had a way to fix their legal status and they never did it. Or
especially for people who had previously been married and are now divorced. Or
what would you say for like those cases is a reason to not fix their legal status?
Yeah. So we have a couple of unlawful presence bars that will be more than an obstacle, but actually a preventative for people acquiring status in the future. And sometimes it is just an obstacle, and it's deep in the minutia of the statutes that really does require some legal expertise and studying to understand the difference. Because there are some people who entered with no visa, no permission, no border crossing card, didn't get waved through by Customs and Border Protection. They just entered. And that's really common. And that's called an unlawful entry. And an unlawful entry will pretty much automatically exclude you from being able to adjust your status to that of a green card holder while you're inside the United States, for the most part. And then there are a lot of people who can still fix their status depending on what type of qualifying relationships they have with United States citizens or lawful permanent residents, unless they entered without permission, stayed for a period of 365 days or more, and left the United States. So that's a year of unlawful presence, and then came back to the United States with no lawful entry. The act of leaving triggers a bar it's the 212A9B bar. And so a year of unlawful presence, it gets you 10 years barred outside the United States. It is waivable, meaning that before you come back, if you file a waiver and you qualify for that waiver,
you have to stay outside for 10 years, correct?
No, not for this one.
For the 6, oh, you're
for
right.
The 212A9B, you don't. It's confusing. 212A9B waivers, you don't. You file a 601.
Yes.
If you haven't made that second unlawful entry, before you come back, you can get it waived before you sit out the whole 10 years. Or if you sit out the whole 10 years, you don't have to file a waiver. You can just file for your lawful entry and come back in. But if you hit that subsequent re-entry with no visa, border crossing card, permission to enter, that re-entry triggers a different bar, and it is called the permanent bar. And that permanent bar will prevent you, I mean, it is a full stop until you sit 10 years outside of the United States and file a waiver, both.
And do you have to go home to like your place of birth, or can you go to another country?
No, you can go anywhere in the world that's not in the United States or one of the United States territories. So you can't go to Guam, and you can't go to Puerto Rico. You have to leave the United States all the way. And those bars are confusing. And it would be very advisable to know whether or not your entry history or your interactions with Customs and Border Protection in the past have triggered either or both of these bars before you submit any type of application to USCIS.
And we would be able to do that with the FOIA.
Yeah.
Like we could get a CBP FOIA, a USCIS FOIA.
Yeah, what's a FOIA?
So that's a great question because people ask it all the time. The Freedom of Information Act, you mentioned it earlier, and it's a way to get a person's immigration records. There's different agencies, so we can request it from multiple places, just depending on like your apprehensions, who detained you,
whether you've ever been fingerprinted.
Yes.
Because we have a lot of catch and release cases in the Frontera, a lot.
Yes, and so it's very important to speak to an attorney because maybe you did have a apprehension at the border.
But it could have been a voluntary departure.
Yes, correct. And it wasn't a deportation order or anything, and it wasn't held against you, and you might still have a way to fix your legal status. So that's why it's really important to talk to an immigration attorney.
Yeah, it is. Even if you don't have a way forward, it's really good to know your own history so that we can help you prepare for whatever interaction you could have with a federal officer, or if you want to prepare for the possibility of future removal proceedings. It's good to have some documentation ready.
As we were talking earlier about the people that are currently being detained or people that have been here less than 2 years, so it would be advisable then to carry proof that you've been here more than 2 years, pulled over and detained.
And if you've been here for 10 years or more, there's a possibility that you have other types of relief in court. And so it's great to have proof that you've been here for 10 years or more, that maybe you're married to a lawful permanent resident or a United States citizen. Maybe you have kids under the age of 21. You have copies of their passports, and they were born in the United States. These types of packets will also be good to present to ICE officers to show them that you have a good, or like a cancellation of removal possibility. Well, thank you for joining us here at the Legal Cafe in downtown Fort Worth. For all of your immigration questions, please contact us at Bailey & Gallion in our Dallas office, our Fort Worth office, and our Mansfield office.